everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Welcome back to my channel. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Happy Sunday. Merry Christmas to those of you guys who celebrate. I hope you guys are somewhere warm, enjoying yourselves, having fun with your family and your loved ones. And thank you for sharing it with me if you're watching this on Christmas Day. This is going to be the astrology for December 25th through the 31st. Officially the very last astro weather for 2022. Oh, we are getting ready to welcome in the new year. I'm excited and really looking forward to some of the bigger transits in 2023. But before we get there, let's take a look at how the year is going to be closing out. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm a Western astrologer with an emphasis in working both with tarot as well as the Sabian Symbols. I like to incorporate them to better understand what's going on cosmically. And if you like my content, make sure you're clicking the button below, you're subscribed, and leave me a comment, say hello, let me know where you're tuning in from. It'd be lovely to hear from all of the new subscribers. Any interaction with the channel really helps. I know I always say that, but it's going to help get this content out to other people who are looking for similar type of videos and help me continue to grow Beyond the Veil on YouTube. So I appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. So the week is going to kick off today, the 25th, Sunday. Those of you guys who heeded my advice about not having Christmas celebrations yesterday, perhaps now you see why. The last couple days, Pluto's been in conjunction with the moon in Capricorn, just coming off of that new moon in Capricorn. It's a goat party in the skies. I keep saying that, but it literally is. We have so many planets in Capricorn. A stellium taking place right now. But as you guys wake up this morning, the moon is in Aquarius, so it's much more about partying, having fun, socializing, having a good time. A much easier place to kind of have the moon than in Capricorn. And right off the bat, the moon is forming an air trine to Mars in Gemini. Pretty soon, it's a couple weeks, Mars is going to go direct, but just heads up, guys, Mars is going over similar to territory as when it's stationed, when it first started getting ready to go retrograde. So this was several months ago, but if you think back to that time, we might notice similar themes coming up. Mars has also been activating an eclipse point that we had in Gemini. So we're seeing still some of that stuff kind of playing out. But for the most part, the lunar transits taking place, today really aren't that bad. Later in the day, we'll see the moon kind of move in degrees and it's going to come into a square with its own nodes. And so you guys know what I say about that, right? Squares that we have to the nodes of the moon, especially when the moon is squaring its own nodes, we really start to see that there's some like fateful events taking place. So this is going to be somewhere around 5:30-ish p.m. Pacific time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So the evening of Christmas, right? Some of you guys are sitting down, you're having dinner, you're going to be with family, maybe you're going to be at a party. The moon in Aquarius really puts an emphasis on who we're spending time with, who our collective groups are, who our friends are, who our goals are, what our goals are, and what we're doing as a collective. So when planets square the nodes, we see some kind of fated event that can happen. And it is going to start coming into a square with Uranus, which is a little bit more emotionally unsettling, but that's not going to be until later in the evening. So thankfully, a lot of that's going to be taking place later in the evening or when most of us are asleep. That'll be on Christmas night later in the evening. But the moon square Uranus in Taurus definitely feels like there's some emotional changes, emotional disruptions. For some of us, it's literally having different traditions, being in a different home, maybe having different family or home dynamics over the holiday, or just finding that we're spending time with friends rather than family, or we're really kind of feeling the physical shifts of not having certain people around with us or in our home, right? So what I like about the moon in Aquarius is the fact that it is really emphasizing with its sextile to Chiron and Aries the ability to really heal ourselves through our community. So maybe you're in a situation where you're living in a different place further away from family. Perhaps maybe you're spending first kind of holiday by yourself. That sextile that's happening to Chiron is basically saying like we may be brought in and spend time with people who bring us in and treat us like family, right? So there's the family that you're born into, and then there's the family that you make. And that's what I love about Moon in Aquarius, is that many of us will be finding like adopted type homes and relatives that may not be blood, but they're going to treat us as such. So that's a nice, easier way kind of out from that. This is then going to take us into Monday. And on Monday, the only real significant aspect that we're going to see is that the moon then comes into conjunction with Saturn. So on the morning of the 26th, early afternoon Eastern Standard Time, Saturn and the moon come together. Challenging, right? This can be like serious emotional commitments, responsibilities to our home, to our family. Difficult time kind of relating, being able to share our feelings, heavier moods, definitely. But I also think this is a lot of like, oh, we have to like pick up the house post-holiday party. We got to put away all the decorations. We have to drive grandma back home. Like there's going to be this sense of like emotionally really needing to get a lot of stuff done, or domestically, and just a lot more emphasis around older relatives. You would see this anyway, you know, with all these planets in Capricorn, because it can be about older relatives or goals or responsibilities. So it's interesting because while we're in Capricorn season, we always take a look at what's going on with Saturn. So this is as the moon is now coming out of that new moon phase. It gets a little bit easier when it gets into Pisces later in the week, but nevertheless, just watch for some of that emotional heaviness and the need to be serious about what we're committing to in a home or a family sense. Then we've got the moon moving on Tuesday the 27th. It's going to enter into Pisces. So we wake up on the 27th and the moon is in Pisces. So very different energy on Tuesday. And we're going to start seeing some really nice sextiles taking place also between Capricorn and Pisces. So we're seeing these sextiles here. Moon in Pisces, more emotional, sensitive, dreamy. We're more receptive. We're going to be a little bit more willing to retreat, rest, recuperate. I don't mind it. I kind of feel like this is a welcomed 48-hour period where we really can wind down after what's been a rather busy, rather hectic year. So perhaps some of us are really starting to kind of catch a break on the 27th and on the 28th. That's when things kind of ease up a little bit. You guys are going to start really feeling the effects of the Mercury retrograde coming in, because now Mercury is coming to the degree in which it will retrograde in. That'll be 24 degrees of Capricorn. If you guys haven't already seen my Mercury retrograde video, check it out. I talk all about the aspects and how it's going to play out for each and every one of the 12 signs. I also touch on it a little bit for January's horoscopes. Those are also live as well. But yeah, if you have any planets around, let's say like 22 to 26 degrees of Capricorn, sun, moon, rising, personal planet, if that's your Mercury, you're having several Mercury returns. It's going to be really felt, obviously, by, I would say, like the 22 to 26 degrees of the cardinal signs, right? But the actual retrograde itself will go from 8 all the way through 24 degrees of Capricorn. It's not going to happen until later in the week, so you still have a little bit of time, but I told you guys that the shadow is going to be kind of gnarly on both ends because it's stopping just short of Pluto. Still, I would say you have a little bit of working time before that retrograde happens, and I'm liking the fact that the moon and the sun are in a sextile to each other. We have all the responsibility, the goal-oriented action, the long-term planning, the persistence, the patience, that's now working hand in hand with the moon in Pisces. So there's like a sense of being like, this is my goal, I'm envisioning it. I love the aspects between like Neptune planets and Saturn-based planets, and the fact that Capricorn literally gives the orders to planets in Pisces and helps them focus on what they're manifesting, and vice versa. You know, Pisces placements are going to help visualize and dream, or, you know, create a collage or a vision board or a slideshow to help Capricorn be more productive. So I think you guys are really going to like this, like I said, 48-hour period where you're going to see this kind of really kind of kick in. And that's really the only significant aspect that we're going to see will be that sextile, little quiet in the astrology midweek. Then we're going to get into the 28th. This will be Wednesday. And when we wake up in the morning on Wednesday, we see that the moon is approaching a conjunction with Neptune, okay, which makes us even more sensitive and more empathic. More kind of sleepy, dreamy, but wonderful time for like tuning in, meditating, chanting, drawing, anything that's going to be more kind of either spiritual or quiet, or anything that's just going to help us be more reflective. And on this day, we're also going to be seeing that you're really going to feel the sextiles kick in big time, because we've got Venus at 23, Mercury at 24, Pluto at 27. And as the moon is sextiling all of these planets, they're communicating with one another and saying, hey, let's initiate this thing, right? Like, let's work on this thing. The sun is bringing energy to our responsibilities. Venus talks about commitments and serious commitments of the heart and tradition and things that might be a little bit more long-term planning. Venus in Capricorn says, what are we building together? Mercury obviously is about organization or information or anything in regards to taking stuff apart. And Pluto is about change and transformation. So Capricorn archetypally, right, is going to be like our father figure, our boss. It can be an elderly grandparent. It can be somebody who's a government official, somebody who wears uniforms. And I talked in my Mercury retrograde video about how the Mercury retrograde is going to bring up some similar themes that we've seen over the last 2 years when we had retrogrades in Capricorn. Issues with government funding, timelines for being able to pass things and get things done. We're also going to find that there is going to be either a rethinking or a kind of formatting potentially of boundaries and laws and regulations. And it's all going to be about control because it's all going to be conjunct Pluto, right? So what I like about this, even though that's some heavier kind of subjects, is that the moon and Neptune is opening up to intuition and vision, and it's receiving messages from Capricorn. So look at where Capricorn is in your chart. There's a lot of action in that area that is helping support making changes in the Pisces area of your life, and vice versa. If you flip-flop it, the dreaminess, the connection, the intuitive hits, the receptivity that you have in the Pisces area of your life is also sending feedback and messages to Capricorn. So those two parts of your chart are going to be a little bit more active throughout this week. Obviously later in the day, we then see the moon come into conjunction with Neptune, and that's going to be happening right around the afternoon hours. Definitely putting a highlight on like I said, sensitivity. And so people might notice that they're just more emotional at the drop of a hat. People might be a little bit more tired or a little bit more needing to kind of be alone and have their space. But the darker side of Neptune is more likely to indulge in the alcohol or the drugs, more likely to feel extreme feelings of needing to escape, or you might notice escapism type tendencies, and not taking care of things and failing to kind of get the job done. Use the 28th, if you guys can, to be able to help envision something that you're wanting to kind of bring together and create form, because Capricorn creates form. So we know it's going to be a while until we get some of these planets in Pisces. It'll be in the new year. But for right now, with all these planets in conjunction to Pluto, and also the fact that Mercury is getting ready to retrograde, it's to help us better dissolve things or to better kind of tune in emotionally or spiritually. So use this day. The 28th is an awesome working day for that. Then on the 29th, and this will be early in the morning, most of you guys are going to be in bed, but you're going to see in the early hours, it's going to be like around 2:30 a.m., 5:30 a.m. Eastern time. Mercury is going to go retrograde. So really you guys have really up until about Wednesday. So if you need to do any Mercury retrograde things, signing things, agreeing to things, launching things, although you're already in the shadow, I would say at this point, just wait, let the Mercury retrograde kind of play out, and then you'll be able to, on the other side of it, remedy whatever is being worked or kind of corrected. But yeah, we have this Mercury retrograde starting on the 29th. It's going to go until about mid-January. And it's going to go retrograde in conjunction to Venus. So it'll be at 24 degrees, which is a very Piscean, hidden, what we didn't see, what we don't know type of energy. It has a very Neptune energy to it. So I'm anticipating that we're already picking up on what's getting ready to be reworked and kind of reorganized, or what we need to kind of take responsibility for the day before, because we're picking up on those sextiles. And what's interesting is the moon is in the late degrees of Pisces still, so it'll be sextiling Pluto. So if we're intuitive enough, if we're tapped in enough, we can start to pick up on what's coming. Just me, I mean, and part of it's I have a lot of planets in Capricorn, but I kept looking at the retrograde being like, I don't know, the aspects to Neptune, there's going to be some issue with water. Like, what's the problem with water? And I kept asking myself, what's it going to be? What's it going to be? And sure enough, we're in the shadow. But it was like, walk out into the new house that I'm living in, and there's water all over the kitchen, and there was like a flood from the dishwasher. Come to find out, pull the dishwasher out, look through everything, have it checked out. Somebody didn't put a washer on right. So water had been accumulating literally behind the washing machine in the kitchen for the last few days, right? Very Neptunian thing. But the retrograde is going directly over my Saturn-Neptune. So in my mind, I was like, okay, there's going to be water issues, pay attention, and it's going to be in places you can't see it, Neptune. So watch for that. There are lots of conversations going on between these two houses somewhere in your chart. I'm very curious, because when I saw the conjunction at 24 degrees, I was like, I've seen that before. I've seen that before. Where did I see that? Oh, March 2020. So March 22nd, 2020, tongue-tied. Let me show you guys. This was the last time we had this conjunction. Anybody remember just off the top of their head what was going on in March of 2020? Okay, I didn't think I had to say anything, but just, I was literally sitting in my office being like, yeah, what was going on like March 22nd, 2020? Oh yeah, like the world, I feel like the world was ending. We didn't know what was coming. We didn't know what was going to happen. But I was just trying to think, not in a global sense, but I was like, what was going on in my life then? And then I started to kind of have flashbacks and realize that there was all of this stuff that was kind of going on that was making me realize like all this stuff has to end, because like I have a 3-year plan. Like I have this thing that I have to get going on. I have to be working on this thing. And now it makes perfect sense. So if you guys want to take a look, go look at your social media or your timelines or your photos or whatever you have to do. Make a note of the week of March 22nd, 2020. This is when we had an insane conjunction, okay? So it wasn't just Jupiter that was conjunct Pluto. It was also Mars. So we had Jupiter, Mars, and Pluto. I mean, and we're really splitting hairs here because these two planets were at 23 going into 24, but over that period of a couple days, they were all hitting 24 degrees of Capricorn. I'm going to read you guys the Sabian symbol, but Pluto was there as well, okay? And this is right when Saturn was doing his dance, right? Saturn had just first kind of moved into Aquarius. It was the very beginning of social distancing. It was the beginning also of us having separation, isolation, not being able to go places, shutting things down. I'm curious because the Mercury retrograde is going to go through these degrees and it'll go back and forth through January. If there is some news coverage or information or something that comes out about how we handled things almost 3 years ago, whether or not things were handled appropriately, right? And it's going to just reactivate this conjunction. Yeah, and you know, Pluto's going to hit this degree as well in a couple months' time. It's going to hit 0 degrees of Aquarius. So on one hand, I'm like, is it the new normal? On the other hand, I'm trying to hold this like higher vibration for the vision of Pluto and Aquarius, and that it's about giving power back to the people. I don't want to buy into this idea that it's just going to be this dystopian kind of future and everybody's just going to be like sucked into the metaverse. I feel like if enough people are able to tap into this same energy of what happened several years ago, we're going to realize through the retrograde that there is a need to rethink how much power we're giving the government, big business, right, media, and where our money is going. I've been following this whole thing with like how there is this audit that happened happened with the Pentagon, and there was like God knows of how many, I don't know if it was billions of trillions of dollars that just vanished. And also all of these deals that are being made right now between the United States and Ukraine in support of Ukraine and their war with Russia, and how much money is actually going out. If you guys saw recently, there was like, I think like a $7 trillion deal that was passed. By both parties supported this deal, but one of like the biggest spending deals that we've seen in terms of the United States budgets thus far. So much of it is actually going to defense, which is also in turn going to a bunch of private companies, right? So I'm wondering, is the Mercury retrograde going to be about this? Why are we not hearing more about this? And where is our tax dollars going to? I don't know. Let me read you guys the Sabian symbol and bring this back to today. And I just, yeah, like I said, I mean, I'm curious. I'm curious to see what happens. I think that there's such an emphasis on this degree, and I remember reading it. I read it several times. I think it was also part of like the Mercury or the Venus retrograde last year. But we'll see if it aligns with you guys as well. For those of you guys who aren't aware, this is my Sabian Symbol Screen of Prophecy book. This is what I like to use to reference, just to get some food for thought on the specific degrees. Generally, yes, we do round up, but this is actually retrograding. So we're gonna read 24 degrees because it's gonna go over that fully. It's page 328, Capricorn 27, a woman entering a convent. The keyword is consecration, the retreat. The symbol speaks to stirring from within and the fact that individuals need to change to move themselves forward. The image of a woman entering a convent symbolizes a spiritual commitment and a search for meaning, a desire for union with the all. It also indicates a turning point in life. On a practical level, this degree can indicate an attempt to gain release from stress, a desire for privacy, isolation, retreat, withdrawal from social activities. At its highest, it represents a cosmic insight, devotion, dedication to spiritual principles. Watch for psychological escapism. The accent is on withdrawal and solitude. You may be feeling like you need to get away from it all. Take some time to think some things over to get your life in order. Your greatest advantage lies in learning when to slow down and take time for yourself. Schedule regular quiet time for rest, meditation, or contemplation, and keep the appointment. Guard against being afraid to meet life on its own terms or trying to avoid all conflict and struggle by running for cover at the first sign of trouble. Try not to live your life sitting by the exit door. Stepping stones would be withdrawal, seclusion, retreat, escapism, privacy, isolation, dedication, turning point, commitment, devotion, and responsibility. I don't know. I mean, I think just kind of like reflecting on that conjunction, you know, for me, when it happened on my natal Vesta. It was in my 4th house because I'm a Libra rising. And I think of like how I have a 4th house stellium, and when the whole pandemic started, I feel like I definitely handled it a lot better than most other people because I am a 4th houser and I definitely like to stay home. I'm very kind of private. I like to keep to myself. So in many ways, the pandemic actually gave me the ability to go deeper and really focus even more on going beyond the physical home, going deeper into intuitive development, focusing also on my roots, like learning more about my past history and just taking better care of my emotional health. For many people, this retrograde, especially with the sextiles that you're going to see leading up to Pisces, is going to be one last shot to take a look at your Capricorn area of your chart and really ask yourself, what do you need to reflect on? Where do you need to go deeper? What needs to be spoken? What needs to be processed? What do you need to reevaluate? And because it's coming in conjunction with Venus, right? It has this reflecting on what we used to love, right? And what we're willing to do for love or beauty or harmony or relationships. You know, not a lot of people like want to do the work. Not a lot of people want to roll up their sleeves because it's not glamorous. And Capricorn is not a very glamorous sign. Yes, they focus on prestige and being able to get recognition, but that's because they like leadership. They like responsibility. They like being the person who's basically going to lead the team. So what I think we're learning through this retrograde is that this is the opportunity to really dig deep and figure out, what do we love? What do we value? How hard are we willing to work to be able to actually bring that fully together before Mercury comes into its conjunction with Pluto? You know, on the flip side, for some people, it's going to be, do I really love this person? You know, can I stay in this relationship? Do I really love this job? Do I love something so much that I'm willing to do anything for it? And on the flip side, if you say that you love or value or cherish something, do something about it. Don't just talk about it, be about it, because Capricorn is about taking action. But because it's ruled by Saturn, it's about long-term plans, the process, right? So I'm kind of loving that throughout this transit, we have seen so many planets start coming into squares with Aries, and where Aries like wants to just take off, Capricorn knows it's about persistence and timing and taking your time and focusing on the long road, not just trying to get a lot done in a short period of time, but planning and setting up like a series of goals to be able to get to where it is that you're going. So for many of us, yes, it's the end of the year, but like, don't buy into that Roman calendar bullshit. Like the new year really is going to start in the spring, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, when we have the sun and other planets ingress into Aries. So to some extent, over the next several months, we're going to see planets go through Capricorn, go through Aquarius, go through Pisces. We've also got lots of outer planets that are going to be in these degrees as well. So to some extent, this is like this wrapping up. Okay, cool. How far have we come? Where can we party a little bit, you know, in January, going into February? Where do we rest and retreat when we get into the end of February, going into March? And then we're going to have so much more potent energy, I believe, in Aries season, that I'm not going to tell you guys to just like chill and do nothing, but really it's going to be for the best of I think working with the astrology and for our assistance to work with the Mercury retrograde for the next month and really ask ourselves, you know, what are our goals? What are we working for? And are we living a life where we feel like it is just prestige oriented, where it's just going to be about how people view us? Or do we feel like we're actually participating in a job that's making a difference and it's our purpose, right? That's something that I think is also like a big thing with the sextiles to Neptune, our purpose. And a lot of people are like, oh, I want to be an influencer, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. But I feel like probably part of the challenges that have been coming up for people throughout some of these Capricorn transits, I mean, this goes back to 2008 when Pluto first entered, is that a lot of people are working jobs that may not necessarily have purpose, right? So what I like about the retrograde is that it's going to come into conjunction with Venus, and we reflect on, what do we love? What would we value doing, right? How could we make money in a way that feels comfortable? And also the sextiles to Neptune. It can also be giving, and it can be involving art or creativity or nonprofit or being able to help or heal the masses, right? It's about that willingness to make sacrifice in the process of getting the job done. So if you're starting the year or going into the new year, kind of reflecting on some of this stuff, it may resonate with you, perhaps, depending on where this is taking place in your chart. More on that. I'll talk more about that when probably I do I'll do my January video, or when we talk about the end of the Mercury retrograde, because I like to kind of circle back and do another video on that. So let's take this now to the 30th. And this will be Friday. And when we wake up on Friday, the moon is in Aries still. Over the evening, it comes into conjunction with Chiron, but it gets a little tricky here, the 30th going into the 31st. So we've got this moon in Aries, which is kind of feisty and fiery. As the moon is moving through Aries, it's going to sextile Saturn, so that's going to have some kind of support from groups, and it's very goal-oriented. It'll also sextile Mars in Gemini, so that's nice to see that aspect. But overall, and I've experienced this really since like the solstice, just the squares between planets in Capricorn and Jupiter in Aries feels very jarring. It feels like we got to do this now, we got to get this going. So there's been this like go, go, go type of vibe. And we're going to feel a little bit of this on the 30th, because the moon is going to start coming into squares with the sun, although that's early in the morning. Mercury, and then you'll see that square to Venus and Pluto. Something else also that you're going to see that's going to take place throughout the day is also going to be the sun is going to start coming into an in conjunct with Mars, and that feels agitating. Like going back to my like archetypal kind of view of the signs. If Capricorn is this older, mature person in a suit, and Mars in Gemini is like a punk kid with a skateboard, and you put them both in a room, you know, you're going to see the Mars and Gemini bouncing all over the place, being like, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, and kind of like doing circles around Capricorn. And Capricorn's going to sit there and go like, okay, you know, I can only put up with so much, or I'm going to let this person just kind of blow off all the steam and run around until they've run themselves ragged, and then I'm going to step in. You may notice more agitation, basically, because of that Sun Mars in conjunct. And that's going to start to really kick in like really throughout the entire day, actually. As we go hour by hour, the sun will move to 9 degrees. The in conjunct looks like it's literally happening in the afternoon. And this is right around the time that we also see that moon in Aries, which is very impulsive, quick moving. It needs an outlet. It is a good idea to be mindful of road rage and hurtful words and issues with communication and communication breakdown, especially all day on the 30th. So this will be Friday. Why do I say this? Well, we've got Mercury, which is retrograde, still in conjunction to Venus. And now we've got the moon squaring with Mercury. So having a difficult time because we're acting impulsively, because we're more focused on the self. We're not as focused on rules, responsibility, commitment. It's hard. And this is the individual. So Aries represents the individual passion, needs, desire, and how that's coming into conflict with, but this is what we have to do. This is what's required of us. This is, you know, what we're told we need to wrap up or finish. So intuitively, there's going to be this feeling of, I want to do what I want to do now, and I don't want to have to go through, you know, asking for permission, or I don't want to have to abide by the timeline, or I don't want to have to finish up work. I'll just wait until the new year is over. But we have a difficult time emotionally relating with Moon and Mercury in a square, and then the Moon is going to keep moving, and it's going to square Venus, and that's going to be the later evening on the 30th. And then the moon will square Pluto. Once again, thankfully, a lot of this stuff is happening while we're sleeping. So by the time we wake up on the 31st in the morning, one other thing that I notice here is we have a Venus-Pluto conjunction. Dark, sexy, a little taboo. It is in a Gemini degree, so it can be, I think, with the Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus, with Venus conjunct Pluto. A lot of people over the holidays hearing from the past, right? The ghost of ex's past, calling, checking in, reminiscing, looking at pictures and photos. But this can also be like, I feel like for a lot of people, it's like that the holidays feel different, right? Venus, Pluto can be about wealth, but I think the Mercury retrograde is this realization that's like, for many people, financially things are very tight. It may not feel quite as end of year holiday-ish type celebration. I also feel like with the moon in the late degrees in a square to Venus and Pluto, there can be some sense of like conflict in terms of, you know, what we want to do versus what people expect us to do. And I've definitely seen this kind of play out a little bit. I've seen this play out this week. We haven't even gotten to the astrology yet, but I'm anticipating there's going to be a lot of, well, this is what I want to do, but this is what my husband wants to do, or this is what I want to do, but my family want me to kind of be there with them with New Year's. Friction between ultimately what we need on an individual level and what people expect of us, right? Still, I think a lot of people are going to be working into the new year. I think you're going to hear people saying, you know, I can't afford to take time off. I'm working 2 jobs, or, you know, I will show up to the party when I can, when I get off work. It's kind of hard to avoid that with all these planets that are in Capricorn. Then later in the day, and I'm actually pleased with the astrology of New Year's Day, for what it's worth. You know, in the morning, somewhere around 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific time on the 31st, the moon enters into Taurus. It's very comfortable there. Yes, we still have a Mercury retrograde, but as the moon is approaching the North Node, it's going to be very interesting because exalted moon in Taurus, comfortable, romantic, sensitive, good food, good wine, good company. And it's touching its own North Node, and it's going to trine the sun. It's a pretty good omen in terms of just what the astrology for 2023 is going to look like. I look at that chart. I also look at the New Year's chart for Aries season. I look at the solstice charts as well, but I'm kind of digging the fact that there is a number of trines, and then also we've got some sextiles that are happening as well. Touching back on the Venus-Pluto, I mean, that can be really intense passion and sharing with somebody how you feel, but that can also be like romantic drama and like people saying things, and there can be some tension with relationships. But to some extent, I think the Venus-Pluto, especially with the moon in Taurus, trine the sun, there may be a number of people that get engaged over New Year's. That might be a thing. It might be that there's this like really extreme act of like love and like gift giving or jewelry giving. So that can be something else that can pop up. We are seeing the sun start coming into a square with Chiron. So we need to be aware of where perhaps maybe this pressure to show up and be responsible in many ways is kind of acting like it's trumping our own individual needs, or it's trumping anything in regards to needing to tend to our own wounds. So there's a lot of like, suck it up, get the job done, go to work, handle things, stop complaining about it. A lot of us are going to feel the pinch. Okay, just a heads up. But yeah, during New Year's, like I said, that moon in a trine to the sun, an exalted moon. We've also got Mercury going retrograde. We're not going to see the Cazimi point at least until till closer to January, but you know, reevaluating our responsibility and our role in the world, even going into the first. We see the moon continue to move into conjunction with the North Node. It looks like closer to about 6:45-ish a.m. Pacific time on January 1st on Sunday. The North Node of the moon is conjunct with the moon itself, still in a trine to the sun. So we have this feeling of everything kind of coming together naturally on its own. I also feel like this is interesting because Earth trines produce physical change, right? So when the moon's in Taurus, we think about food, money, security, comfort, anything in terms of resources. So I could see like with that North Node conjunction and the trine to the sun, I think a lot of people are getting back to more traditional ways of celebrating. There may not be this sense of, oh, let's go to this big, you know, party or buy tickets to this huge event. I think you're going to see a lot more people that are going to be like, let's stay home and like do what we did when we were kids and celebrate the way that we did when we were kids. You're probably going to see this over Christmas as well. Let's not go out and have an expensive meal. Let's make dinner. We don't always have to buy gifts. We can make things. We don't have to buy ornaments. We can string popcorn, whatever. But I think that there's going to be this sense of getting back down to basics and doing things that are a little bit more closer to home. So if you're opting to do something at home with your family rather than going out, it may actually be a better way to go. Personally, that's just my 2 cents. I don't know. I also know that with a ton of planets in Capricorn, Saturn in Aquarius, and all of these trines, it's going to be cold in certain parts of the world. I mean, like very cold. We're going to see such extreme weather that it's also going to be difficult to physically get around or to even like be outside or to be willing to travel. So just a heads up for those of you guys who are planning on doing that, you may see a little bit of turbulence, especially when the Moon-Neptune conjunctions are happening. We're definitely going to see either some visibility issues or there can be some extreme weather or storms. So the last aspect it's going to make is that conjunction to Uranus, and that is going to be next Sunday. So this will be New Year's Day. And it's going to make that conjunction somewhere around right after 1:45 p.m. Pacific time. So that'll be, what is that? 4:45 p.m. Eastern. So just a heads up, a little bit emotionally destabilizing, you know, I mean, having the moon obviously in Taurus is nice, but it's going to conjunct Uranus. So it's going to kind of pop a little bit. Then we're going to see that moon continue to make trines to Mercury and Pluto. Venus is getting ready to leave Capricorn. It'll go into Aquarius soon. And we're going to see the moon square Saturn. So the morning of New Year's Day, great, awesome. Not so thrilled about the squares to Saturn and also the fact that as the moon keeps moving forward, it's going to trine Mercury retrograde. So it's like literally New Year's Day and we're like, oh, back to the grind. You know, not many people are going to have the luxury of being able to take off more time. they will have to be at work on Monday the 2nd. So be mindful of that when you guys are partying for New Year's. Make sure you're taking care of yourselves and nursing those hangovers so you're not having a 2-day hangover. And very much back to work. And that's really it for the week, you guys. Usually at the end of the month, I do the month ahead and I talk to you guys all about what the next month is going to look like. But I'm going to save that because I'm actually working on putting together a presentation for New Year's Day. Obviously, I'm going to make the most of those transits, and I'm going to be doing a live presentation for the astrology of 2023. So if you want to spend your New Year's Day with me, I'd love to hang out with you. It's going to be a live presentation here on YouTube on a private link. We're going to talk about all the major transits. We've got Pluto and Saturn changing signs. We're going to take a look at the nodal changes, the eclipses, the retrogrades, and how it's going to be affecting each and every one of the 12 signs. If you guys have seen some of my presentations in the past, like the Mars retrograde or any of my webinars, it's going to be very similar. I'll make sure I post a link, so if you guys want to join me, you can in advance, and you can get all the info for that. It'll be 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern on January 1st, 2023. I hope to see you there. Also this week, we're going to be having live tarot. So if you guys have noticed, we've changed it up a little bit. It is actually going to be on Friday. Yes, we usually have it on Saturdays, but we had Christmas Eve and now we have New Year's Eve. So I want to spend time with my family. I want you guys to spend time with yours. But if you want to get a tarot reading, we're going to be here on the 30th on Friday, 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific time, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. That has changed, okay? I just want you guys to know I will be doing it at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, because now I'm on Central Time because I moved to a different state. And as much as I'd love to stay up late with you guys, you're not going to get much out of me past 9 p.m. And it's not too late to sign up for my Astro 201 if you want to learn astrology with me. I would love to work with you to teach you. Come be a part of my digital classroom with a number of other students as we learn how to use transits to make predictions and start looking at return charts. It's going to start on January 22nd. We're going to have 8 consecutive weeks on Sunday mornings where I'm going to be teaching the art of prediction through astrology. It's my level 2, so if you have a background in astrology, you understand how to read a natal chart, you're welcome to come and join. Those of you guys who took level 1, this would be the next step. So please consider signing up. You can click my links below. You can go to my website and you can click on courses. I have a beginner's tarot, beginner's astrology, and this would be level 2. I'm excited to keep, putting out more content for you guys this year. We're going to be doing some more courses and hopefully building up to what will eventually be a level 3 astrology. And if you guys haven't already seen, my January 2023 horoscopes are already live, over 3.5 hours of content. I'm going to talk to you guys about the most important transits for each and every one of the 12 signs, take you through the month ahead, and talk about what the universe has in store for you guys. So make sure you check those out as well. That's going to be it for this week. I will see you guys very soon in this next week with some more content, and hopefully on New Year's Day, if you guys want to join me, maybe we'll get sassy and drink some champagne in the morning. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, guys, that's it. I'll see you soon. Enjoy your week. Take care.